Qlik back again. Today I'm going to talk to you about our Snowflake Usage Dashboard version 4.0 that David Frericks and I have built for you. The biggest difference between version 4.0 and the 3.0 series, it basically resides around query history. What we found with some customers that had billions and billions of query histories across all of their different tenants was that it was just becoming way too bulky to read into the single application. And so what we did was try to separate the query history and your ability to look at the details from the aggregates about it. So I'm going to show you that as I get to that screen. But that's basically the fundamental difference from that application. I'm also at the end of this, if you want to stick around, I'm going to kind of give you the how-to. I'm going to walk into the code itself and show you basically how to get this configured and set up in your own tenants or your own client managed environments. So first of all, as we look at the first screen where we're looking at basically the high level usage metrics, we've got all of the different systems. If you do have multiple tenants, they'll be loaded. For this particular recording, I've just got this one tenant that I've been using. And of course, what it uses behind the scenes are some master items that are from, or I should say, master islands, not master items. And so you could change these and say, hey, I really want to look at the queries that have failed as a second measure or whatever. So you can manipulate these to look at whatever it is that you want to look at in the charts. So you simply have fun with those. When I look at the credits, I can look at my credits used over time. And because this has as much history as you want, you can track this as far over time as you need to. All you'd have to do when you look at these credits purchased, decide how you want to adjust that. If you have a year and a half of data, you might want to take your yearly credits and multiply it times 1.5 to give you an idea of what to do there. So you can do those kind of things. As is always, we can look at what our quotas is and what our usage history is, because there were people with different types of credits and the way that they're billed. So we wanted to give you a couple different screens, and you choose then the screens that are going to be right for your particular environment or for your customer's environment if you're a Qlik solution architect or somebody in professional services rolling this out for your customers. We had an auditing dashboard in this. One of the things that we did here was we masked or hashed the usernames. And so you've got the option. I hash our internal username so that I can still demo this for you. If hashing is not needed in your customers or your environment, then feel free to change the code so that you're not hashing those things. Here is where version 4 kind of differentiated itself. I can still see the number of queries. I can see how many were successful. I can see how many failed. I can see how many users there were. Again, if there's multiple tenants, I'll show you the breakdowns of those things. This only has one. And here's what happens though. The bulk of the query history data is not retained in this data model so that you have pretty nimble performance here. And instead you can pop up the query details. And now obviously this is a second application. So all I'm doing is I have in my code here a pointer that says, hey, I want you to go pop this website up. And since we are a web-based environment, you can get that information. So now I can see the number of queries, but now I've got all of the history details about it. I can see what times they're running, what instance, what warehouse types they're running on. I can break these things down, whether I'm looking at Qlik Sense or Qlik Sense SaaS. So if I look at my Qlik Sense history, I can then see what time those queries are running at, and I can go look at all of the details about the query text itself for those. So that's kind of the high level breakdown of what version 4 is. I want to show you a little bit about the code to get you an understanding of this. From the high level, there's two types of what I consider to be live or backup things. At my instance level, I can use the word backup, and if you look at the comments, I've got it all commented for you. If I say backup, that means I do not want to read anything um, new from that machine, from that instance. So there were cases where, hey, I just needed to get some other instances once, but we don't really use those instances anymore. So if I were to say this is persisted, what it would do is it would say, let me go load the QVDs for this instance while I continue to get live stuff for the other instances. So that's an option for you if you know in your environment or your customer environment, they have instances where there is still data out there, but you've already pulled it, you've already backed it up, and you don't need to go get anything else live. The other type of a backup says, hey, you know what? Gosh, all I'm doing is playing around with my screen. I'm trying to make some other variables, some other master measures, or measure islands, I should say. And I don't really want to go hit Snowflake all the time while I'm doing that. So you can say this is backup true. And what I'll assume then is all you want to do is load the QVDs, not touch Snowflake for any of these things then. So assuming that you're not in a backup only situation, what would happen is I'm going to incrementally walk through these tables. I'm going to go ahead and read the QVD that was there before. So I will go get that information. If that file existed, I will go pull that information out of your QVD. Then I'll go ahead and go get the latest and greatest data since the last date that was in that QVD. So it's an incremental load strategy that I use here to go pull that information for you. Everything gets loaded in. They're basically the same for each of these queries. It's just a matter of what that where clause is. And so it can roll through all those things. One of the things to keep in mind, if you're not looking at the database details, so we bring in databases and tables and columns, easy breezy to add here, but there's an awful lot of records in those things. So if you don't look at those in the application because you don't care what your configuration was or how many tables are out there, then you can get rid of these three sections or simply move them down below your exit script. The other thing that I want to show you in here, and then I'm going to show you on the screen, is that we can break these things down to cost centers. We had some customers reach out and say, hey, I can see their usernames, but I need to see what their cost centers are. And so this is just a simple little file that you can load. I've got one pointed here. You notice I say it's in the same location as where my QVDs would be. In the zip file that has the application for version 4.0, you're also going to find an Excel sheet that you can use that just has these fields. And basically that's all, literally all it is. This file name and those fields, you could change this to be anything you wanted. You'll see here in my particular scenario, I've already created that file, but I've already hashed them in my file as well. So that if you used hashed already, I don't want to hash it. The version of code that you have now from the base load is going to say I want to hash the field names that come in, because that is what I do in the script when I go look at the login history itself. So if I come back to this application and I go to the cost center breakdown screen, you'll see all that I've basically done there is I've said this user blah 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 is related to this cost center, so that you can track these things to see where your costs are coming from within your organization. Hopefully this helps you get rolling, and I'd always appreciate any feedback you have for the Snowflake usage application. Just share that with David Frericks or I, and we'd be happy to help you. And as always, have a great day.